Hi again, folks. I was able to find some time to do part two of this video, so might as well do it now while the clothes, the clothes are drying. Um, I ended the last video by mentioning my trip to Guyana in November of 2015, where I ended up going to Bartica. Interestingly enough, I forgot to mention that I also went to Linden on that trip also. We came back, we went to Bartica for 2 days. We came back to Georgetown for 1 day. Or I think that same day when we got back to Georgetown, we went home, got some things, and jumped back on a bus and went to Linden. Now, let me expand on that one a little bit because while I really don't have much negative things to say about Guyana at all, I know there are negatives I can talk about. So it would only be fair if I mention a couple of things that made me feel a little bit uncomfortable while I was there. But this was not a new experience for me because I've experienced it elsewhere, but it was just a reminder of something that I just don't really care for. We're going to Linden that day, and this time we didn't take a bus. We decided to take a taxi. So we get down to the main highway, which I forgot what they call it, but I guess this is the Georgetown to the Linden Highway, I guess is what it's called. So we're driving, and there was another passenger in the vehicle. So my wife is laying down, putting her head down on my lap. I really don't know why she likes to do that, but to fall asleep on the trip. But I think she said she wasn't feeling too well. That's what it was. No, normally she stays up. So we're driving, and the taxi guy is just flying, and I'm just thinking to myself, I'm here in Guyana. I don't exactly want to know that my life ends in a horrible car crash with this high rate of speed this person is going with. So he's driving, and I'm looking, and I'm realizing he's getting up close to about 100 miles per hour. And I just realized we're just passing everything in sight. So finally I tapped him. I said, listen, because I know it's an ego thing. I said, look, boss, don't want to try to tell you how to drive, but my wife is not feeling too well, and the rate of speed you're going at is making her even more uncomfortable. Of course, it was making me uncomfortable too, So I didn't get any pushback. He said, all right. So he slowed it down to probably about 75 miles per hour, which I felt more comfortable with. So I said, okay, because I'm also thinking, because one of the things I do when I go into a vehicle, I look at the tires. And I'm just thinking, if this guy has a blowout because the tires are not the greatest in the world, that's the end of us, So I try to get him to slow down where he could probably have a little bit more control should there be any issues. So I'm not comfortable with that. And if I wasn't comfortable with that, I got even more uncomfortable coming back. On the way back from Linden, by the way, I had a great time in Linden while I was there. This time, instead of, the two times I went there, I stayed on the, wow, why am I forgetting this? I know there's a Mackenzie side, and the other side I think begins with a W. I forgot the name of it. But my wife is on the other side, not on the main side with the main part of town, but on the other side. Wow, I'm just drawing a blank of what it is right now. But this time, when we went there, we didn't stay by her grandmother's house like I did in May of 2014. This time we stayed down on the river itself, like literally the river is just like, we're here, you walk across the street and there's the Demerara River. And it was another night with a beautiful, beautiful moonlight. And one of the things that fascinated me, I saw these little boys sitting at the river, and I was wondering what they were doing. They were actually fishing, and I was like, they're fishing at night? They say, yeah, that's when they come out here to fish. Now, of course, me would not be doing that because, of course, in the back of my mind, I'm thinking about snakes and caimans and so forth. So I was like, nah, that's going to be a no for me. But I was fascinated in what they were doing. And it was just a beautiful night. My wife and I sat down outside on the porch area, and we're there looking at the boys fish. And it was breezy, stars in the sky, just, for me, a romantic experience. I just love things like that, just the simple things in life, just the simple beauties of nature just really meant so much to me. Yes, I know other people would be, I'm at a club, I'm at a bar, I'm this, I had this amount. I wasn't into all that stuff. That was beautiful to me. So we had a great time there. And then the next day, we caught a bus on the way back. And we went through the experience of people dragging you left and right to go, no, come on this bus, man. No, come on this bus, come on this bus. Again, that wasn't anything new to me. I experienced a lot of that in Jamaica. So that was not something shocking like, oh my God, he must have been embarrassed. No, it wasn't. It was really great. So we decided to go on this minivan. And as we're driving, this guy is going at this ridiculous rate of speed. And I thought that when some rain started falling halfway along the trip, that he was going to slow down because it's raining. This guy was still driving at this rate of speed with the van just filled out with people. And I'm just thinking to myself, like, this guy, I mean, I know it's something normal that they do, but I'm like, why? And I know it's them trying to make as many trips back and forth to make their money and everything, but at the expense of putting people's lives at risk, driving at such a high rate of speed really, really bothered me, you know? So I think while we were in there, if I'm not mistaken, I think I chimed up or I piped up and said something about the speed. I didn't say it directly to him, but I kind of set it out where he could hear it because I was like 3 rows back, something along that line. Now, I don't remember if he slowed down, but I do remember one thing that was proving my point. We were coming down a little bit of an incline on the Linden Highway, which leads, coming down the Linden Highway going back to Georgetown. And I guess that little bit of an incline going down at the bottom of the incline before you start going back up again, another incline is Splish and Splash. No, it's not Splish and Splash. I forgot what you all call it down there. I don't know why I'm drawing a blank right now. I guess because I'm on video, I'm feeling a little bit nervous. But it's a little water park, I guess, off on the left-hand side as you're going back. And while we're coming down the incline, someone is backing out of the park. And they're backing out into the highway, and he is just coming down with this rate of speed. And I'm like, there's no way he's going to stop in time. And the reason why it was a problem was because on the other side of the street, there was a steady, line of traffic coming on the other side, so you couldn't go on the other side. So as he's coming down, you could just feel him just really flooring the brakes. And I was like, wow. And he came all the way down. He didn't have to drag any brakes, but the surface was still somewhat wet. And I was just like, this guy's going to run right into this guy, man. He's going to slam right into him. But I guess because the other vehicle happened to back out and started pulling off enough, it kind of removed the place where impact would have happened if the guy was not moving out of the way. And that was really nerve-wracking. So that was the experience. So eventually he made it back to the road to Georgetown, where he had to somewhat slow down because he had to, but of course he was passing everything in sight, but he could never get into that long-standing amount of speed that he would like to go, because as he would speed up, he had to slow down, cut back in, and so forth. But we made it back to Georgetown in one piece. And that ended my trip in November of 2015. April of 2016, back in Guyana again. And this time it's because my wife was going to the embassy. And she could have gone by herself, but I decided to just go down there to go ahead and support her. As a matter of fact, we had developed, our relationship had developed so beautifully that we were that close to one another. Even though I was not down there, we were that close. We spoke to each other every single day, hours on end. So I decided it was the right thing for me to do was to go down there to support her, but also gave me another little cheap excuse to go to Guyana. So April 2016, I go down, we go to the embassy. That lasted all of, other than the wait outside, the actual going inside, it was all of 5 minutes because there was nothing else there for them to see. We had everything they needed, had more than enough pictures. We had more than enough of everything, so we were able to get out of there. So enjoy the rest of my trip while I was there in April 2016. My wife got through, and then I realized that she was going to be coming over to be with me shortly. And I want to say about 2 or 3 weeks later, she was on a flight coming over here. And she was here. And that was my 5th trip to Guyana. Then she was over here with me, started working, got our lives together, got our lives started together and everything. The following year, now we're in that same year, as a matter of fact, 2016, in November of 2016, I was able to take her to where I am from. St. Thomas in the U.S. Virgin Islands, and she was just blown away. And one of the beautiful things that we have, she loves where I come from, and I love where she comes from. So it's not like, man, I don't want to go to Guyana. I don't like down there. It's not like St. Thomas. And she's not complaining, oh, I don't like St. Thomas because it's not like Guyana. She loves going down there. We just have our own beauty in our own way, as anyone can probably tell you. You know, I know our topography and the way we look, the way our island is. We're a beach community, whereby Guyana is more of a river community. I know we have that clear blue waters, water you can go swim in, look down, see your feet. I know that's not the case down in Guyana, but still, Guyana has its beauty in its rivers that I really appreciate and I really love. So she goes with me down in 2016 to St. Thomas, and she just had herself a blast. Then, a few months later, we go back to St. Thomas in April of 2018. Am I having that right? 2017, I'm sorry. We go to St. Thomas in April of 2017, so the second time in 4 months. And then we went to Guyana. If I have this correctly, I think it was 2017. We also went to Guyana again in May. Doesn't mean I have money, mind you. We just find a way to just make it. So we go down because her little sister was graduating, and she was graduating as one of the top 3 students in the country, or top 5 in the country. So we went down for her graduation from, I guess, what they would call elementary school, and she was going to Roses. I guess that's the name of the school. I guess that's supposed to be like the top school in the country. So we went down for her graduation. But at the time, guess what? My wife was pregnant with our little boy. I think she was 5 or 6 months pregnant. And we go down for her graduation. And even though my wife was pregnant, I still really got a chance to enjoy myself by going out and seeing the place. And I think at this time also I was starting to start thinking about more like driving instead of putting her through the trouble of going on a bus or catching taxis or whatever. So that was my 6th trip to Guyana, and that was also great. Got a chance to meet even more of her family. Got more familiar with the Georgetown area, knew my way around, knew where to go, knew what to look out for. It was really pleasant. And our final trip to Guyana was this past May into June, right around Carnival time. We got there right as Carnival was ending. I was not even aware that Carnival was, when I booked the flight, I was not even aware that Carnival was going on. And the reason why we decided to go was because my little boy had not seen his Guyanese family. And we decided, so remember, he had been to St. Thomas twice as a little baby and then a little bit older. He's been to St. Thomas now for a total of 3 times because he went back again this April. But we decided to go to Guyana so the family down there could see him. So we go down and we stayed in Diamond, where my wife has an aunt. As a matter of fact, that's where I'd stayed on one of the previous trips also. So we stayed in Diamond and really had a great time. Really was nice. This time around, of course, again, I rented a car. So we had a car to go back and forth, up and down, and so on. And on this trip, I really enjoyed it, but it was really, really hectic because she had to attend to a family member that was rather ill. Fortunately, he's doing so much better right now. But one of the days when we were actually going to the hospital to see about him, and I'm sure you guys would know about this, we were coming around from Diamond, right around Princess Hotel, and there was traffic. We ran into traffic, and we were just like, okay, it's the Harbor Bridge and so forth, but the traffic was absolutely not moving. So we took this little back road somewhere there by Princess Hotel, and it brought us right out by the Harbor Bridge. And as we're there, just traffic for days. We don't know what's going on. We noticed it has nothing to do with the Harbor Bridge, so we didn't know what was going on. So finally, because of social media, we're on our phones, and it popped up that people from Guyana started talking about there was a big accident up in the Agricola area, a place where my wife once lived. And turned out that a little girl was crushed to death, actually cut in half, basically. And this was a story about that truck that was trying to avoid hitting the girl, and I guess the girl scrambled back in the other direction, and she was walking with her aunt. And it was kind of an illegal crossing because it's not a place where you should actually be crossing. But it's a thing that I know people do all the time to shorten their trip. And I guess the little girl got away from her aunt. And I guess she panicked, and I guess the truck swerved this way, and I guess the little girl swerved back in the other direction where the truck was going, and ended up killing her and crushing her. I mean, I have to admit, having children of my own and having a little child, that really choked me up. I really didn't feel good about that. And then I understand that they lit the truck on fire because I guess they thought the driver was at fault. Turned out to be the driver was not exactly at fault, but I guess the people in the neighborhood and the community's reaction was, hey, you just killed one of our children and we're going to hurt you. For the rest of that night, we didn't make it to the hospital. We sat in traffic for about 3 hours. We were able to make it just far enough up where there was a cut in the median where we could turn around and head back toward Diamond. And that's what we decided to do. So we headed back. Did not go to the hospital to see my wife's relative, but that night. But his sister was there with him, and we were supposed to meet up with her to bring her back home, but we had to leave her there overnight. And we got up early in the morning and we went back again. And when we went back, we also encountered traffic. But the reason for the traffic this time was because that's when they decided at 10 o'clock in the morning to remove the truck that was sitting on top of the median. And it held up the traffic. But we were able to make it through. But I had me a great experience. But I had a different experience this time. And this experience was I got pulled over by the police. I got pulled over by the police near Granger's house, the president. I got pulled over near his house, right there before the Guyanese embassy. Not Guyanese embassy, I guess the Chinese building or Chinese embassy or whatever they're building over there. I got pulled over. I guess that would be the bottom of, again, I don't know why I'm drawing all these blanks. Forgot the name, Sheriff Street. I guess where Sheriff Street eventually gets down to home stretch, just before home stretch. Right there he pulled me over. And of course, since I've been in Jamaica and I've dealt with this before, it was the old, hey, let's pull this guy over, let's see if we can get some money out of him type of thing. He asked me for some sort of a paper. I guess the paper was some sort of paperwork you need to drive in Guyana or whatever, which I was not quite sure about. I guess I didn't have the paper, so he escorted me to La Penitence police station. And because my wife has family that has some connections, a phone call was made and could see the sourness on his face. It was like, all right, you can leave. So we left. And I think the next day, I go up to Georgetown Hospital. And while I'm up there, my wife didn't want me to bring our son in the hospital just because it's a hospital. Of course, you don't know what's flying around in there. So I stayed outside with him across the street at Georgetown Hospital in the car. And I got out of the car to do something, to take him for a little walk, just to get him out of the car. And as I was walking back, I was stepping off of a elevated platform down onto the ground where the car was parked. But I had my son in this hand, and I couldn't see behind him to see what was down there. So as I stepped down, I just felt my whole foot just collapse into something. And he was in my left arm, and I was able to brace him enough where just his behind touched the ground. So he wasn't hurt, but my foot went through a rotten piece of plank that was sitting over a drain. And my whole foot went all the way down and got stuck in there. So I have my son in one arm, and my whole foot is stuck in this thing and sitting in water that I don't know what in the world is running down there. I had to drag my foot through. As I'm pulling my foot through, I'm just scratching up my leg with all the wood, the broken wood and everything. I immediately had to, fortunately we had another person there with us. I had to hand my son to that person, and I had to go over to the hospital, and I got me some water and some iodine and some other things to put all over my legs from germs and whatever to prevent any kind of infection. But my whole knee was swollen, my whole leg was swollen. So again, it was just a part of the experience. I look back and I just smile at it right now. But just part of life, I guess, in the Caribbean. So that culminated. But the trip was great. It was nice. And I guess I say all of that to say this, is that I love Guyana. I really, really do love the country. People that know me, people that recognize me right now, people who are probably a part of this page and know about me, They know that I'm always writing about Guyana. I'm always promoting Guyana. And one of the reasons I do so is because me coming from the part of the Caribbean that I come from, there are people who know of Guyana, but they don't really know Guyana like that. It's just like a country down there somewhere at the bottom of wherever. They don't know much about it. So I'm the type of person, I want to bring it to their knowledge. I want to promote the country to them. I don't want them to feel like Guyana is just an afterthought. I want them to understand how beautiful this place is, how relevant this place is. And I also go ahead and teach them the history of Guyana. And one of the things that always blows them away is the fact that if they never thought about Guyana like this, I put this in their mind, that Guyana is almost twice the size of Cuba. 20 Jamaicas can fit inside of Guyana. I also tell them that the Essequibo River is so long that if you had to stretch it out, it would stretch all the way from Trinidad all the way up the Caribbean chain, up to probably close to St. Martin. I think it will get more like to Guadeloupe, maybe Nevis, someplace in that area, but somewhere in that vicinity. That's how long that river is. Not only that, I tell them how fertile Guyana is. The place is just green. It's lush. It has an unmatched beauty you won't find anywhere else in the Caribbean. It has animals, and it has fauna. Sorry about that cold weather out here. It has fauna and flora that you won't see elsewhere in the Caribbean. And I tell them that the place is very diverse in terms of its population, which is one of the promotions I know of Guyana. And I'm going to touch on that in a minute. And that is just rich in natural beauty and natural resources. Unfortunately, it has been mismanaged, or the opportunities were not pounced upon. And that's one of the things I wanted to talk about in regards to Guyana, and this is a little bit more serious. But in terms of politics down there, it is well known that the country is divided politically. This does not mean that you don't have East Indian people and people of African descent and people of Portuguese descent, people, the Amerindians. It doesn't mean that you don't have people that don't get along, don't marry, don't intermarry, don't have children with one another. It doesn't mean that's the case. But when politics come around, that is when it really, 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 really comes out how divided the country is. I mean, should not be surprising. I live in a country right now that is politically divided, and a lot of times it's down the line of race itself. But I've always wondered if Guyanese people, and I'm sure they do, I'm sure it's not something novel that I'm bringing to their attention, but the fact that the people of African descent, their ancestors came to the country in chains and were exploited, abused, hundreds of years of this. But then the people of East Indian heritage, why did they not come in shackles and chains? They were just as exploited by the colonial power at the time, England. And of course, when Guyana was on the road toward independence, we all know that story about what went on there and how the United States and England undermined the efforts of Chetty Jagan to bring Guyana to independence. And from that time, where they went in and really exploited the race tensions that were always there, but probably stayed under the surface, so to speak, maybe not that big. But at that moment, that watershed moment, it really set in motion politics being a part of Guyana's election process. And it's very unfortunate. And because of these divisions, I just feel that the country has not realized its full potential as yet. Where if it did, and it played its cards right, Guyana would be the crowning jewel of the Caribbean region. I say it. I believe that would have been the case. Now, of course, with the discovery of oil, they have another opportunity. But even that, even the political process that's going on right now, hinges on all of that. Because you know that both parties, both major parties, want to be sitting on the throne, so to speak, when these oil profits, whatever they may be, start kicking back. And who knows what's going to happen at that point. I am from the Virgin Islands. I probably have no say in Guyanese politics. But I would think at this point, with such a small population that Guyana has, with so much land, this is not Jamaica with 3 million people and 4,000 square miles. This is 700,000 people on 83,000 square miles. There's more than enough to go around for everybody. More than enough. So if the kickback, if Exxon runs off with 500 billion and they kick back 2 billion to Guyana, they're like, here's some crumbs, here's some pocket change. That is more than enough to take care of Guyana and its people. For them to invest in infrastructure, for them to invest in their hospitals with the latest state-of-the-art equipment, in their schools, in their roads, in their people. That is just my opinion. That's how I see it as an outside observer. But I don't know if all the bad blood and politics is going to rule the day again. I hope it doesn't. And I hope that they play their cards right, because Guyana is truly a beautiful country. I really enjoy myself there. I love the people, the hospitality. It's nothing different from what I see in other places. Of course, you have your share of assholes, you have your share of idiots, you have your share of bad people, people with bad intentions, but that's not the majority of Guyanese. As a matter of fact, right here in New York City, all around me every single day there's crime. And it may not make it to the newspaper, it may not make it to the news, but I have an app on my phone called the Citizens app, which basically people who just, wherever they are, they put up things that you should be watch out for, a stabbing, a shooting, or whatever. So not everything makes it to the newspaper, but if you had to look at the Citizen app, there's stuff going on around here all the time. I just haven't encountered any of it, but it's going on. There's a shooting up here, there's a stabbing down there, somebody got robbed over here. It happens. So I'm not going to sit here and pick in Guyana like what goes on down there doesn't happen elsewhere. But that is not an excuse for Guyana, St. Thomas where I'm from, Jamaica, St. Kitts, Nevis, for us to be killing one another, for us to be hurting one another, or for us to be fighting and bickering over just the stupidest things. Politics? When there's such a bigger picture here that if everyone cooperated, could bring tremendous prosperity and success to the entire society. That may come to the point that brings down all this banditry that goes on down there that people complain about, which is something I don't really like to know that goes on down there, where people are being robbed in broad daylight, guys riding bikes just robbing people. You know, something happened up in Kitty, a video the other day where a car was just following another car, backed them into an area and just opened fire, and I guess they killed either the passenger or the driver. Those kind of things should not be happening. So I don't know. Hopefully this oil situation can bring some sort of prosperity and clarity to Guyana, and I'm wishing it much success. It's my wife's country. It's a place I would live in a heartbeat. That's how much I love the place. So yes, I'm from somewhere else. I've lived here in the States most of my life, and people will probably figure, oh no, you want to live in the States, you have all the conveniences and all the creature comforts over there. Yeah, I do, but it's not me. So I'm going to bring this video to an end, and I really hope that it was interesting to you guys, and I'm really hoping that I get a chance to make it back to Guyana real soon, sooner than later, because again, I really do love the country. So thanks for tuning in. Thanks for looking at the video, and I would love to hear your comments about what I had to say. I'm sure there's a whole lot that I left out, but perhaps I can answer the questions. I'm much better at writing than I am doing what I'm doing right now. So hopefully, if you want to engage me, just engage me down in the comment section, and we can see what we can do about this, okay? Anyway, you guys take care, all right? Bye.